The Long Road to True Happiness by WierdRandomTina. Chapter 43. Ready. The following day, the day after the flashbacks by the river, Poppy figured it would be best to take a break from the village tour, and Branch agreed. No need to push too far and cause even more stress to herself, to Branch, and to everyone around her. However, Poppy was as restless as a busy beetle on coffee. She paced around every inch of her pod over and over, reorganized all the items on her bookshelves, dressers, and walls, and in between all that, she fidgeted with pipe cleaners, pens, papers, empty boxes, whatever stray items she could get a hold of, until her hands and wrists grew sore. Finally, Poppy decided she needed something to ease her unbearable nerves, a soothing bubble bath. That always succeeded in calming her. So she headed into the bathroom, plugged the drain, and turned on the tap. But as she watched the tub fill with water, she found her heart rate increasing and her breaths growing shallow. All she could see was colossal lake growing, flooding the forest, swallowing the land, destroying the village, looking out beyond the mid-cliff and seeing nothing but churning water. Poppy hastily turned off the tap and stumbled away from the tub. She couldn't do it. Something that used to relax her now freaked her out. Something so simple and harmless as a bath now overwhelmed her with panic. She couldn't even bring herself to reach into shallow water and plug the drain. And now she was even more stressed out than before. With an annoyed huff, the Grey Queen hurried out of the bathroom. She found that she was also extremely jumpy throughout the entire day. Everything was startling her. The noise of construction equipment starting up in the distance, a gust of wind rattling the trees, a bird chirping in her window, a paper falling off her desk as she walked by it, even her own reflection at one point. Poppy wanted nothing more than to lie down and rest, but she could not settle. Her mind was running a mile a minute. She hadn't suffered from any bad dreams last night, because she hadn't gotten a single second of sleep. Despite her eyelids weighing a ton, she couldn't close them. She was so tired that every step made her feel like she was going to fall over, yet she continued to roam around like a maniac. Her anxieties were drowning her, sinking her further into a cold despair. She wanted to escape this emotional chaos, but she was imprisoned by it. The next day was no better. If anything, it was worse. She still couldn't sleep, and spent literally the entire night staring up at the ceiling, alternating between feeling angry, sad, nervous, defeated, nauseous, annoyed, afraid, crestfallen, guilty, numb. And Poppy discovered bath water was not the only thing that bothered her. When she turned on the tap to fill up a glass of water, her anxiety built and her hands started to tremble until she dropped the glass, smashing it to pieces in the sink. She shakily cleaned up the glass chunks, but it took a long time, and she managed to cut her finger. Not badly, but enough that she required a bandage. After that, the Grey Girl's stress level was at an all-time high. But, strangely enough, she felt hungry. For the first time in a month, she was craving food. No, more than that. She was starving. She hurried to the fridge and grabbed a pile of food. A large yogurt, a tall glass of juice, a heaping bowl of fruit, and wolfed it all down within a few minutes. Unfortunately, it was too much too fast for her shrunken stomach, and within another few minutes, Poppy was running to the bathroom to bring it all back up. As she shambled back into the living room, her belly felt even emptier than before, and that stupid hunger lingered, despite the soreness burning her insides. Finally out of energy, she flopped face down on the couch to cry. But she didn't even have the energy to do that. She merely let out a light sob here and there. She stayed there for what felt like forever, her mind swarming with depressing thoughts. At 12, about an hour later, Branch walked in. Seeing the wretched sight of his girlfriend, he covered her with a blanket and delicately tucked a pillow under her head. "Get some rest, sweetheart." Her voice was muffled from the pillow. "I can't." He ran his fingers through her greyish-brown bangs. Try. We'll take a walk tomorrow, or the next day, or next week. Whenever you're ready. Whenever I'm ready. Poppy pushed herself up into a sitting position. I'm not ready to go into the village. I'm not sure I will be for a while. That's all right. Branch sat beside her. Don't feel bad about that. It's understandable considering what happened last time. We can always build back up to it. Take a few strolls along some quiet trails and see how that goes first. Poppy nodded. Then she swallowed thickly. She shifted roughly in her seat and loudly cleared her throat. But, there is, one thing that I am ready to do. Branch shifted a bit to face her better. What's that? She swallowed again, but managed to look her boyfriend in the eyes. Talk. About everything. Her boyfriend's turquoise face softened even more. Then I'm all ears. Just give me 1 minute. He stood up, and she assumed he had some unfinished business in the village to do first. But instead he hurried over to her craft desk. I'm going to make a quick please do not disturb sign, so there won't be any interruptions. She nodded gratefully. While Branch gathered some paper, a bold marker, some colourful tacks, and got to work, Poppy took that time to mentally plan her speech. But when Branch posted the sign on her door, her mind was still blank. As he grabbed a glass of water, she started to feel nervous. There was so much she needed to say, yet she couldn't formulate a single word. Her already sore stomach ached as he approached. He set the glass on her side table, then resumed his seat beside her. He gazed at her lovingly, with undivided attention, patiently waiting for her to speak. But she didn't say a word. Poppy was 100% ready to talk. In fact, there was an overwhelming strong urge to scream out everything on her mind. So why could she not utter a single peep? She mumbled an extended, but it did nothing to ease the awkward silence. All her thoughts and feelings were right there on the tip of her tongue, but there were so many and they were all so jumbled. It was like trying to navigate through a blizzard. Finally, Poppy admitted in a small voice, Sorry, I don't even know where to start. It's all right. Take your time, sweetheart. Take all day if you need to. Everything is under control in the village, so don't worry about interfering with my schedule or anyone else's. Poppy shifted around to face him, but kept her gaze focused on her knees. It's probably going to be a rambling, blabbering mess. That's fine too. He reached for her hand, but held onto it very lightly, leaving her the option to pull away. It doesn't have to sound poetic or make any sense whatsoever. Just blurt out whatever comes to mind. Curse, cry, yell, punch a pillow, whatever you need to do to get it off your chest. Poppy kept her hand in Branch's, and even gave it a little squeeze. She closed her eyes for a minute, waiting for her tornado of thoughts to settle. At last, she took a deep breath. Okay, well, first of all, that has been nagging at me. I mean, the village. Everyone's schedules. Your schedules, their schedules. Everyone has important schedules, except me. I just drag myself out of bed really late in the morning, laze around on the couch all day, then go to bed really early. That's all I do. All day, every day. And that's not me. Meanwhile, every other troll in the village is working their flipping hair off. Especially you. You're out planning and exploring and building and helping and protecting people. And what am I doing? At best, I'm doing nothing to help. And at worst, I'm getting in the way. Frightening people, disheartening people, hurting my best friends' feelings. I'm dragging everyone down, being a knot in their hair when I'm supposed to be their leader. And then you have to go out of your way to check on me. You waste your time to make me meals and do my chores and comfort me when I'm freaking out. I disturb your much-needed sleep every night, and you take me on lame, pointless walks. You could be doing something productive. But instead you're stuck with me. She closed her eyes. You must feel like you're my servant. When she trailed off, Branch put his hand under her chin to lift her gaze. No, I don't. You're sick, and I'm taking care of you. You do the same for me. You did do the same for me. You are never a waste of time, and I am not stuck with you, Poppy. I chose to stay by your side through this hardship, and I have never regretted that decision, not even for a millisecond. Poppy sniffled. She could feel her eyes starting to water, but she was determined to hold off crying for as long as possible. But I never act like I appreciate anything you do for me. I haven't given you a thank you gift, or a thank you card, or a thank you hug, or even a verbal thank you. I just mope and whine and cold shoulder you, or snap at you. I know you appreciate it, Poppy, Branch assured her. You're just having trouble expressing that right now. Gratitude is a positive thing. So when you're full of negativity, that's all you're able to show. Sadness, anger, fear. Poppy shifted her hand to hold Branch's hand firmly, like she never wanted to let him go. Her voice was reduced to a shaky whisper. But I almost lost you. You almost died. You could have drowned in those grip plants, or you could have been hit by the flood as we ran. She moved her other hand so both were tightly gripping Branch's one. And now I'm constantly worried I'm going to lose you. I worry about you every single time you aren't right by my side. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I never see you again? What would I do without you? Hearing herself, she thought that confession sounded extremely lame, and expected Branch to say something like, You don't have to worry about me. I'm fine. I'm right here. Nothing's going to happen to me. Instead, he offered her a brief story of his own. I felt the same way about you. Even before we became friends, I had countless nightmares about something bad happening to you. Getting hurt in a freak accident, attacked by a vicious predator, or taken by a Bergen. I knew none of it was real, but the fear was very real. And every morning, I had to double check to make sure you were truly okay. And if I didn't hear from you for a while, I'd start inventing scenarios. You're sick, you're hurt, you're at Dr. Moonbloom's and she can't cure you. You're unconscious and bleeding in the woods somewhere. You're trapped in a stray tarantula nest about to be eaten. I'd have a detailed story from start to finish in my head. Poppy almost chuckled. Really? Yes. And when I wasn't afraid of losing you, I was terrified of losing your friendship. The logical part of me knew you couldn't hate me even if your life depended on it. But I could never escape that irrational phobia, no matter how hard I tried. What if you were only pretending to like me? What if I hurt your feelings? What if you decide you want nothing to do with me? How could I ever live my life without you? I'd fret over little things that hadn't even happened yet, with little to no evidence that such a thing ever could happen. Hearing how her boyfriend had experienced the same fears offered her a slight comfort. He can relate. He doesn't think I'm being crazy or weird or overdramatic. I'm not the only one who's felt this way. Feeling some relief, she added shyly, It often crossed my mind. Branch is probably mad at me. He's definitely disappointed in me. He's going to get sick of me. Then that's all I could think about. It's like someone was screaming it into my ear, and there was no way to block it out. It really upset me, even though deep down I knew it wasn't true. Branch smiled softly. You're right. None of that is true. But it can be difficult to distinguish between reality and the vivid pictures your anxiety is trying to paint. That's why I constantly remind you of how much I love you, and that I'm here for you, so the truth can overcome your fears. A little twinge of contentedness crept into Poppy's chest, like the tiniest glow bug had awoken in her heart. But as usual, it was squished and snuffed out in the blink of an eye. She frowned as she squeezed his hand even tighter. But that's another problem! I have so many fears now. Her volume increased as her voice grew more distressed. I can't even look at a river without completely freaking out. Even a tiny harmless one. I couldn't fill up my bathtub yesterday because the increasing water level made me so uncomfortable. And this morning, the tap water bothered me for fudge's sake. Even firebugs and seeing the Fun Factory Foundation gives me this awful sinking feeling in my gut. But rivers, it's like I'm paralysed with fear. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
That will go away in time, Poppy. It's a survival mechanism. Your brain is telling you to stay away from anything similar to the original danger. But you can train yourself to control that instinct.
Despite her boyfriend's encouraging words, Poppy's anxieties continued to grow until she had to stand up and started pacing in front of the couch. But it's not just that. Everything bothers me now. I worry about another flood happening, about you getting hurt, about taking up too much of your time, about talking to people in case I hurt their feelings. I worry about going to sleep and having nightmares, while I worry about getting no sleep and feeling miserable the next day. I worry that I'll be grey forever. And about other trolls going grey, especially my dad. He says he's fine, but I can tell his colours aren't fine. His orange skin is pale and his magenta hair is dull. His amber eyes have lost their warmth. It's bad enough that I feel awful, but I'm making all my loved ones feel awful too. My dad and my friends and you. And then I worry about running out of toothpaste, for crying out loud. I mean, I have over half a tube left and it's a common item to get a hold of. I worry about literally everything. Even the stupid little things. Hey, I'm not worrying about worrying too much sometimes. But sometimes I'm worried I'm not worried enough. And then... Poppy's volume started to decrease. Her frantic burst of energy spent. I also worry about the village hating me. Even when they're being friendly to me. I feel like they hate me. I don't want them to hate me, but they should. I deserve it. She had to pause in her pacing, so Branch stood up and walked toward her.
Why do you feel like you deserve to be hated?
She sighed. Because I'm a bad queen. Branch placed a hand on her shoulder.
And why do you say that?
Because I am! Poppy cried, her eyes watering again, and she flinched away from him. I'm not being a leader. I'm not being strong. I'm not being an inspirational role model. And I'm not taking care of my village. And I broke my promise.
You mean your promise to stay in Troll Village when I went out looking for the missing trolls?
Poppy shook her head sadly. Not that one. I mean the royal vow. The vow to never leave a troll behind. Dad saved everyone from the Bergens. But I couldn't save everyone from the flood. A good queen is supposed to protect every last troll. But I didn't. Branch's hand reached towards her shoulder again, his voice softening even more as he realised exactly what, or who, she was talking about.
You did everything you could.
No! She practically leapt away from him. I didn't! I got a troll killed, Branch! That is not something a good queen does! He attempted another step closer.
Poppy, you didn't.
I killed him! Poppy took 3 more steps away from her boyfriend, curling her arms around herself with her chin tucked into her chest. I killed Creek! Her voice shook and she snivelled as a single tear rolled down her pale cheek. Branch stayed where he was this time, respecting her need for some personal space. His voice remained soft and certain.
No, you didn't, Poppy. The flood killed him.
But the only reason the flood killed him is because I shoved him into the bushes. If I hadn't done that, he could have escaped. But he didn't escape. Creek didn't make it because of me. He would be alive right now if it wasn't for me. You can't say that isn't true.
But it isn't that simple, Poppy. That's only a small portion of the story. Creek chose to put his own life on the line, and you did not influence that choice in any way. Him being in the danger zone was no accident or misunderstanding. You gave the entire village, including him, plenty of warning. You strictly ordered everyone to stay in the east and the north, but Krieg bluntly disobeyed. You were an excellent queen, Poppy. Your sole focus was to get your people out of danger and make sure they stayed safe. You succeeded in keeping them calm. You were level-headed, organised, brave, and stealthless.
Branch took one slow step toward her.
The fact is, if Krieg hadn't done what he did, he would still be alive.
She didn't move away, so he continued his gradual approach.
And if it wasn't for you, I would not be alive right now.
Standing beside his girlfriend now, he resumed his loving touch on her shoulder, and she let him.
You protected me, Poppy. You saved me. You risked your own life to save mine, and I will never forget that.
Poppy gave him the tiniest smile. Anyone else would have missed it, but Branch caught it. She sniffled and wiped away her tears. I just can't imagine wanting to harm another troll. I always try to see things from other people's perspectives, but this time I can't. Not even a tiny bit. I know he didn't like you and was jealous of you, but that's no excuse to let you drown. I mean, you didn't like him, yet you went back to save him. You could have just left him there, and no one would have ever known. But you didn't. You did the right thing. You were being a good person, and yet he still tried to... She sighed. It's one thing for Krieg to treat you badly, insult you, or try to convince other people to hate you. But I never thought he'd... She sighed again, roughly. Then again, that's probably just me being oblivious and way too trusting.
No, Poppy. I was completely caught off guard too.
His other hand rested on her arm, which was still wrapped around herself.
There's nothing I, or you, or anyone could have done. You did nothing bad or wrong. Krieg did.
Still, Poppy lowered her head, and her next words were so quiet, Branch had to lean forward to hear her properly. But I don't know how to feel about him being gone. I feel terrible, but I also don't feel that terrible. Like, he tried to leave you for dead, so how can I feel bad? But how can I feel good about someone dying? But then you almost died. You would have died because of him. So I'm almost relieved. But that sounds like I'm being cruel, especially since I'm partly the reason he died. I feel bad about feeling bad, and then I feel bad about not feeling bad. Ugh, it's all so confusing. She buried her face into her hands, afraid this would be the one thing that would finally cause Branch to reject her. After all, he almost lost his life because of Krieg. If I say I feel bad for Krieg, that's like saying, so what if he almost killed Branch? But then I say I don't feel bad for Krieg at all, and then I sound like a monster.
But Branch didn't flinch.
Instead, he shifted closer to her. His blue eyes as soft and warm as always.
There's no right or wrong way to feel about it. You don't have to choose between feeling good or bad. It's understandable that you would feel a bit of both. Something like that is far too complex to label with a single emotion. As you said, I've never liked Krieg. I couldn't stand the way he acted, the way he treated you. What he tried to do to me was downright despicable. But even I can't say I'm happy that he's gone. However, it's hard for me to feel bad for him when it was his own fault. If he'd been injured like Sarah, or helping another troll like the kids, or a confused elder like Pine, his death would have been a tragedy. Feeling relieved that a dangerous and unpredictable troll can no longer hurt innocent people doesn't make you a bad person, Poppy.
For a minute, Poppy leaned against Branch, letting his wise words sink in. What her boyfriend said made perfect sense, yet she still couldn't accept it. Her mind kept insisting that it's all her fault. She's a terrible person, He shouldn't have died. She could have saved him. Why can't I just believe that Branch is telling the truth? I want to believe. It's logical, and it's the truth. So, what's stopping me from... Then, like the sun appearing from behind the clouds, the answer popped into her head. Dozens of vivid, horrific images had replayed in her head 100 times since the flood. But one stood out from the rest. And it was the only one she had kept completely to herself. Not even Branch knew about it. So, if she finally opened up about it, maybe it would finally stop nagging at her. Maybe she could finally find a way to move forward. Slowly, Poppy made her way back over to the couch. Branch followed her with a serious look on his face, as if he sensed she was about to reveal something major. She grabbed a hold of his hand this time, pulling it toward her and into her lap. There's something else. I can't stop seeing Creek's face. Right before the flood hit. Branch looked mildly confused.
What do you mean?
She braced herself to finally confess the horrible truth. I saw it. I saw him. I saw Creek. He was on the top of a tall tree beyond Midcliff, and I saw him get hit by the flood. I watched him disappear into the water. Everyone heard the news that he didn't make it and accepted he must be gone when he was nowhere to be found. But I already knew, because I witnessed it happen. So I couldn't hold on to any bit of hope that he might still be alive, because I knew no creature could survive that, whether it was the initial hit, or he drowned, or debris hit him. I knew he didn't stand a chance. Her eyes started to water again, but she managed to maintain a level voice. And his face during those final seconds, so full of dread and terror. I can't even describe it. It was worse than horrific, and his eyes met mine for a split second, and it was the longest second of my life. I can still see his silent, desperate plea so painfully clear, as clear as if I'm looking at a photo of it. His fear so strong I could actually feel it myself, and I can still feel it. And then, bam! He was gone, wiped out, never to be seen again. And the last thing he experienced was the most awful, unimaginable fear. It's in my thoughts, my dreams, everywhere, all the time. I can't unsee it. It's burned into my memory. Finally, Poppy's voice started to tremble. I've always believed nothing is impossible. There's always hope. There's no problem I can't fix. But after everything, the flood, Creek, the fun factory crumbling before my eyes, my beliefs were proven to be wrong. I felt shattered, defeated, empty, like my whole world had just been flipped upside down. The Grey Flood didn't just destroy half the village. It destroyed me. During the entire evacuation, I had it in my head that everyone would survive this. I was 100% certain I would save every troll, just like Dad did. So, when I shoved Creek away, showing zero concern for his well-being, then our eyes met right before he died, I felt like I had failed as a queen. I never imagined a troll could do something so evil, so I never prepared myself having to deal with something like that. And if it wasn't him who died, then it would have been you. So either way, someone would have lost their life that day. I thought no troll left behind would be so easy to live up to. But it wasn't. Branch's face was gaping, shocked by her revelation. His own eyes were watering too. Now he was able to understand exactly why she blamed herself so harshly for everything, especially Creek's death. She was still gripping his one hand, so he placed his free hand on top.
Poppy, I had no idea. I'm so sorry you had to see that. Regardless of the circumstances, witnessing someone's final moments is traumatic, especially when it's your sole responsibility to ensure everyone's safety. But you shouldn't keep blaming yourself and believing you're a failure. I understand why you feel that way. Believe me, I know exactly what that's like. But you did what you had to do to survive. The only way you'll be able to move on is by coming to terms with the situation and forgiving yourself. Which could take a while, but trust me, things will get better with time.
Poppy lowered her head, staying silent for a few minutes. Finally, the light grey queen took a deep breath and let it out in a long huff. I hate this. I hate the way I am now. I want to be back to my normal self, smiling and laughing and singing, not getting scared or angry over the littlest things. But I don't know how. I used to feel so strong and confident. Now I feel so weak, full of doubt, just mentally and physically exhausted, all the time. I want to be out in the village, working hard and doing nice things for people and having a good time. I want to look in the mirror and see nice bright pink again, not this pale, ugly grey. Branch's ears perked up at the last sentence.
You may be pale and grey, but nothing about you is ugly, Poppy.
She lifted one arm, her hand hanging limp, and stared at it in disgust. My colours are. Or should I say, my lack of colours. It looks awful. She plunked her arm back down. I look awful.
That's not true, Branch insisted. You're still the most beautiful troll in the world.
But Poppy scoffed. I'm the dullest troll in the world. Instead of continuing his argument, Branch attempted a different approach.
Did you think I was ugly when I was grey?
Poppy looked startled for a second, then ducked her head as she realised what he was doing. No, she mumbled.
Did my grey skin and black hair make me look awful?
No.
Exactly.
He shifted closer to her.
You will always be beautiful to me, Poppy. Whether you're pink or grey, vibrant or pale, it makes no difference to me. In your heart, you're still Poppy, and she's the troll I fell in love with.
Poppy lowered her head even further, looking smaller than ever. She whispered sadly, but I don't feel like Poppy anymore.
But you are. I know you are.
Branch placed his hand under her chin and guided her gaze up to his.
Maybe you can't see it, but I can. Cheerful and optimistic Poppy isn't gone. She's just hidden. Deep down, lost in a complicated maze of emotions. Happiness isn't something that can be eliminated. Yours is still inside you, Poppy. All you need is someone to help you find it.
Those familiar words pulled at Poppy's heartstrings. A tear rolled down her cheek as Branch continued.
You're the one who taught me that. In the beginning, I refused to believe it was possible. I thought it was nothing more than a cliché quote for cheesy greeting cards. But you showed me the truth. Anyone can be happy, no matter what they've been through, provided they're given the right support. I know it's difficult to think positively right now, but it does get easier. Gradually, bit by bit, you will become cheerful, optimistic, colourful Queen Poppy once again.
Poppy whimpered. I was his someone. Now he can be my someone. She was suddenly so overwhelmed with emotion, sadness, love, worry, relief, that all she could do was burst out crying. Branch pulled her into a gentle hug, letting her sob into his shoulder. She snuggled into his side, her one hand grasping his leafy vest. There she stayed for a long time, crying, sobbing, bawling, weeping, all her bottled up pain and misery pouring out like rain from a storm cloud. After a few minutes, her boyfriend's angelic voice whispered sweet lyrics into her ear. Oh, why do you look so sad? Tears are in your eyes. Come on and come to me now. Don't be ashamed to cry. Let me see you through, 'cause I've seen the dark side too. When the night falls on you, you don't know what to do. Nothing you confess could make me love you less. His singing tugged at Poppy's heart in the most agonizing yet most pleasant way. She snuggled in even closer. I'll stand by you, I'll stand by you, won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you. Take me in your darkest hour, and I'll never desert you. I'll stand by you. Her next sob came out as a half chuckle. She had experienced mountains of doubt over the last month, but in that moment she was certain of one thing. Branch's love for her was boundless, unbreakable. He will never abandon her, no matter how bad things get. Even though she's given up all hope, he still hasn't given up on her. Poppy nuzzled into his shoulder as she continued to cry, and he continued to sing softly. So if you're mad, get mad. Don't hold it all inside. Come on and talk to me now. When you're standing at a crossroads, don't know what path to choose, let me come along, 'cause even if you're wrong, I'll stand by you. Poppy wasn't sure what time Branch left, but she woke up alone on the couch, wrapped in a comfy blanket with her fluffy pillow under her head. She woke up, which meant she'd been asleep. She sat up to look at her clock. It was late in the afternoon. She had not only fallen asleep for several hours, but she hadn't had a single bad dream. She must have dozed off while leaning against Branch. He continued to hold her after her crying subsided, and the last thing she remembered was the feel of his fuzzy vest, his arms protectively around her, his feather-light kiss on her forehead. She let out a long yawn and a stretch. She was still very tired, but it was a satisfying nap. She stood up from the couch and was surprised by how fast she moved. Her typical stiffness had reduced significantly, and her entire body was feeling lighter. Even her emotions more relaxed. She was not feeling exuberant by any means, but not completely depressed either. Just a calm neutral. Poppy passed her mirror and paused. Branch's words rang in her ears. You're still the most beautiful troll in the world. Maybe you can't see it, but I can. Your happiness is still inside you. Gradually, you will become Queen Poppy once again. She studied her reflection intently. Nope. Still felt like she was looking at a stranger. She appreciated her boyfriend's kind and hopeful words, but she still couldn't see what he saw. However, Poppy did see something that she hadn't seen in a long time. Pink. She took a closer look until her nose almost touched the mirror. Her skin and hair and eyes were all still very dull and pale, but they didn't seem to be stony grey anymore. She tried to shrug it off, assuming she was imagining it, or it was the lighting playing tricks on her. But no matter where she stood in her pod, or at what angle, there it was, the faintest hint of real colour. In that moment, Poppy felt a spark of something. Some emotion that wasn't bitter or cold or dark. What is this? I think it's... Could it be... motivation? She glanced over at her work desk, feeling drawn to the colourful craft materials. Slowly, she walked over to it. She surveyed all the supplies for a minute or two before picking up a light blue piece of paper. Her other hand reached towards a pair of scissors. Tentatively, she cut a little square from one of the corners. Feeling at ease, she repeated the cuts, creating a matching square. Then she tried another, twice the size. Before she knew it, Poppy had used up the entire sheet, and upgraded to circles, triangles, and even stars. It was such a random, simple, pointless activity. Yet, she felt accomplished. As she stared down at the pile of assorted shapes, she felt satisfied. Later, when Branch returned to her pod to have dinner, he found his girlfriend sitting on the couch, and was surprised to see what she was doing.
Hey, you're reading a scrapbook?
Poppy almost looked startled, like she hadn't realised that's what she was doing. Yeah, I just kind of felt like it, I guess. His entire turquoise face brightened with hope, but his voice remained level.
What else have you been up to since I left?
She set her scrapbook aside. Well, not much. I slept for a few hours. Then I cut out some paper shapes. Then I did a small load of laundry. Then I sat back here and started to look through some old scrapbooks. Branch made his way over to sit beside her, gazing at her proudly.
That sounds like quite a lot to me.
Poppy ducked her head shyly. It's more than I've done in a while, yes, but it still isn't much. She listened intently as he informed her of today's progress in the village. Once he trailed off, she was silent for a moment, before finally daring to say, Branch, I need to ask you something. But I also need you to be totally honest with me.
Of course, sweetheart.
Is it just me, or are my colours kind of... She didn't need to finish her hesitant question. Branch's eyes were sparkling as he answered,
Yes, my love. I see it too.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh my god, I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. She's opening up. She fully expressed that trauma, and now she's finally got it out and she's starting to be a bit motivated again. And can I just say that appetite thing with anxiety, I've been going through that the last few weeks. In and out. Like, I have an anxiety attack and then my appetite's weird for a few days, then I go back to normal, then another anxiety attack. But I think I'm past my trigger now. I won't say what it was, but it was something to do with something in my life that I needed some reassurance on, but going to the place where I would get the reassurance was making me have the anxiety attacks, so a bit counterproductive. But I finally got it, and I've eaten a fair bit today, but not too much. I actually had this really yummy yogurt thing that I've never tried before. Greek yogurt mixed with black currant jam. I just swirled them together and ate them from a bowl while we're doing this recording. It was absolutely delicious, and I don't feel guilty about having something sweet. Normally, for me, when I have anxiety, having sugar is the last thing I need, because it will make me have another attack because my energy spikes. But that, just a little bit of jam, and yogurt doesn't have as much sugar in it, so I don't feel guilty about having it, and my heart's not pounding, which feels great. Anyway, yeah, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I've uploaded a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.